At the very core of our entire legal system, there's a simple but really powerful promise. If one of your rights gets violated, there should be a way to make it right. In this explainer, we're going to break down exactly what that promise means, how it's supposed to work, and frankly, why it's so incredibly important for justice for every single one of us. It all comes down to this old Latin phrase, ubi jus ibi remedium. It's the foundation for so much of modern justice. And all it means is that having a right is pretty much meaningless if there's no way to fix things when that right is wronged. So let's dive in and see what that promise actually looks like in the real world. So where does this promise actually get put to the test? Well, it happens in the world of civil law. You can think of this as the arena where all sorts of disputes between people and organizations are meant to be sorted out fairly. Okay, now this slide shows a really key distinction. Most of us, we're familiar with criminal law from movies and TV shows. That's where the state goes after somebody for a crime. But civil law, that's totally different. It's all about resolving disputes between people. And notice the purpose here. It's not about punishment, it's about compensation, about making the injured person whole again. And what's really crucial, the burden of proof is lower, which can make it easier for a regular person to seek justice. And look, this isn't just some abstract legal theory. We're talking about stuff that happens every single day. Disagreements over a contract, fights between a landlord and a tenant, someone suing for damages after an accident. These are all real-life civil cases where someone is just trying to stand up for their rights. So if your right has been violated, what can a court actually do about it? Well, you can think of the available remedies as a kind of legal toolkit. Let's open it up and take a look at the main tools a court can use to set things right. The most common tool in the box? Money. It's pretty straightforward, right? We call it monetary relief. If someone's actions ended up costing you, the court can order them to pay you back for that loss. The whole goal is just to compensate you for the harm you've suffered. But sometimes money just doesn't cut it. An injunction is a really powerful tool where a court orders someone to either stop doing something harmful or, in some cases, to start doing something they're supposed to. It's all about preventing more damage from happening. What if you signed a contract for something totally unique, like a one-of-a-kind piece of art or a specific piece of land? Money can't replace that. That's where specific performance comes in. The court basically orders the other party to do exactly what they promised to do in the first place. And finally, we have something called a declaration. Sometimes the whole fight is just about figuring out who has what right. A declaration is just the court's official judgment that makes the legal situation crystal clear for everyone involved, settling the argument once and for all. So having a great legal toolkit is one thing, but here's the catch. What happens when most people can't even get their hands on it? And this brings us to the biggest challenge of all, the gap between the promise of justice and the reality of actually being able to access it. This is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Legal help, court fees, it can all be incredibly expensive. So if you can't afford it, does that mean that promise of where there is a right, there is a remedy just doesn't apply to you? It's like Martin Luther King Jr. said, and this really hits home. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. A system that only works for people who can afford it threatens the very idea of what justice is supposed to be. An inaccessible remedy isn't really a remedy at all. But the good news is it's not all doom and gloom. There are some really important efforts underway to bridge this gap. So let's look at how the system tries to build a sort of remedy bridge to make sure everyone has a fair shot at justice. A huge part of the solution comes down to two words, pro bono. It's a Latin phrase that means for the public good. And it's when lawyers and other legal professionals volunteer their time and their skills completely for free to help people who couldn't otherwise afford it. And this isn't just a few lawyers helping out here and there. No way. It's a serious, structured effort. As you can see from this journal cover, legal systems all over the world, like in India, are actively studying how to make these pro bono models work even better to ensure everyone can get help when they need it. And this is absolutely crucial. It's not just about charity. The state itself has a constitutional duty to step in. For instance, India's constitution specifically says that the government must provide free legal aid to make sure that poverty doesn't stop someone from getting justice. And that takes us to the big idea, the real takeaway here. The right to a remedy isn't just some nice feature of a country's legal system. It's considered a fundamental human right. I mean that literally.
It's actually written down in major international agreements like the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This elevates it to a global standard, a promise that every single person, everywhere, should have a way to fight back when their basic rights are violated. So, a remedy has to be effective. But what does that really mean in practice? Well, this slide breaks it down perfectly. First, it's got to be accessible. You shouldn't have to jump through a million hoops or be rich to get help. Second, it has to be prompt, because as they say, justice delayed is justice denied. Third, it has to provide real reparations, actual, meaningful relief. And finally, and this one is so important, it has to be enforceable. Because let's be real, a court decision that can't actually be implemented is just a useless piece of paper. And that brings us to our final thought, a question I want to leave with you. We've seen the promise, we've looked at the tools, and we've talked about the challenges. But the real question is this. In your own community, is this fundamental right to a remedy truly a reality for everyone?